Wow. So this is it. Number 50. It's been one heck of a journey telling 50, dare I say, completely kick-ass stories about some great stuff happening in Pittsburgh's tech sector. Could not have done it without the help of Comcast. They had my back literally the entire time so we could tell these stories during a time when we need some positive stories, some stories of inspiration. And I saved this story for last because this is just a really cool story. We're talking to Patrick Colletti today from Net Health. And Patrick is one of these guys. I've known him for more than 20 years. I've witnessed him take a company that was falling apart and with him and his team grow it to this massive company today that is saving people's lives, improving the quality of life, employing a ton of people. To me, it's one of these stories of what can happen right in Pittsburgh. And we're going to talk to Patrick about that today, plus a little project that he's working on that he's kind of been inspired by through his journey as well, too. So Patrick, always good hooking up with you and seeing what's going on with Net Health, even in these crazy COVID times. And I do love your virtual Net Health cafe that is behind you because it reminds me of the times being in Net Health, drinking coffee with you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I got to have the coffee background. I miss going to coffee shops. I can't wait to get back to it soon.
Tell me about it. And we've had lots of coffee together over the years. And before we jump in, tell me, what is your favorite coffee right now? Because I think you always are one-upping me on the coffee and how you make it. I know you were doing the Chemex for a while. But any special beans that I should be thinking about before we begin this conversation?
Yeah, so this could be a really long conversation. So right now, and I'd say for many, many years, I've been fond of natural process coffee. So you can do the wash process or a natural process where they let it ferment a little bit in the sun. I think it gives it a unique taste. There's some coffee nerds that disagree, but I love it. So I'd say my favorite coffees, if I can find them, are natural process Ethiopians. They're hard to find now.
I just took notes down, and I'm also going to remind you, there was once a time when you stopped drinking coffee.
I did.
In a weird point of time, I'm like, how could Patrick stop drinking coffee?
It was weird. It was just for a little while. I did it for about a year, and then I realized I just love coffee.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. We always share our passion for coffee, but I would say you are that much more passionate than I am. You definitely take it to a next cool level. So first off, let's start with what Net Health is all about. Like, it's been over 20 years you guys have been around. I mean, you actually, I think, started as like an intern back there 20-something years ago. So give us the quick overview of Net Health. And really, let's talk about how, over the years, you guys have been part of our Tech 50 Awards, which are coming up this October. You guys have won, I think, 3 or 4 times over the years. And it seems like every so often, you guys keep bumping it up. And I just want to know what's driving your momentum.
Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, it has been a long time. Chris, our CTO, was in fact an intern in those earliest days. But the board asked us if 2 of us would stick around. Everybody else was laid off and try to do a turnaround. And we did. And we had about 90 days to prove it. We got past the 90 days, proved a little bit, and just took step by step.
Right.
Today we're well over 500 employees. And
wow.
Blew past the 100 million in recurring revenue mark. So it's a good story for Pittsburgh. And it's one that Pittsburgh gets to take a lot of the credit for. Having the kind of city and the people we have access to here is huge. So, for us, I'd say it has been a journey. We've been focused on really killer culture. And that the point is that people always talk about people are their greatest asset. I think the reality is community is your greatest asset. Because if you get a group of people who are fired up for a just cause, you're pretty much unstoppable. So we've been focused on creating a killer community, not just earnings.
Very much so. I mean, it shows the earnings happen because you create that base that is the culture. And we're going to nerd out about that in a minute. I'm going to bring up the old Formal Fridays that you guys, I don't know if you still have them or not, but I remember back in the day when you did, it was pretty freaking cool. You definitely impressed Audrey and I with the Formal Friday concept. But tell our listeners and our viewers here just a little bit about what Net Health does, because so much has changed over the years. You've added new services. Give us the quick pillars as to what Net Health does and really how it just positively impacts the quality of people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with a really small idea and we pivoted away from maybe 4 product ideas we had years ago. And we learned about patients who have chronic wounds. And this was something obviously we didn't know a lot about, but we heard a bit about it and we got interested and we launched some software. It's called Wound Expert. And the idea was to bring together caregivers to heal these patients. And then after 3 or 4 years, I personally kind of fell in love with the patient. And so I would mark that difference, because in the earliest days, it was all about driving a successful company, creating something that could last. But then when I got impassioned about the patient and I met my first wound care patient, her name was Lenora, and I saw the way that she was suffering, the way that she was a bit depressed, embarrassed, felt like her body had failed her. A light clicked on that we could be a part of her journey and her healing. And really in that room, I saw the nurse provided her a pictorial analysis of how her wound was actually getting smaller, although it looked like it was getting bigger, because in chronic wound care, you debride the wound, so it appears to get larger on the surface, but the volume's actually shrinking.
Huh.
And so, it was a light bulb moment for me in patient engagement. Today in healthcare, patient engagement is what it's all about. But so I'd say it started there. And then over the years, we have acquired more products, built more products.
Right.
We've got 8 different products today, and we're in 97% of the largest health systems in the US, probably 14,000, 15,000 post-acute facilities if you add them as well. So throughout the entire care continuum, we focus on specialized care, and ultimately the big goal is reuniting caregivers with their calling.
That's what it's all about. And so when you first started this up 20 plus years ago and you're like, yeah, we got 90 days to turn this thing around, it's like, oh my goodness. Would you ever thought for a second that like 20 plus years later, this is where Net Health would be?
No, I definitely didn't. Yeah, sometimes people, they'll stop us and say, oh, you should be so proud of what you've done. And I definitely don't feel that way. I mean, I enjoy the fact that I can come to our offices in the Strip and brew really good coffee. So there's perks and benefits to it. I'm delighted that there are a lot of people employed in all of the cities that we have offices. So to me, that's a real gift.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get to the culture thing, because honestly, that has been your differentiator forever. I mean, you were thinking about culture, I really think, Patrick, before culture was cool. I mean, back in the early days of tech, people always talked about their stupid pinball machines and free beer Fridays and all that kind of stuff. And that was fine and dandy, but you looked at it in a much different, I would say like a deeper way. It was more than just having these freebie things to make people happy, but you were actually finding ways to get people engaged and to kind of harness their passions and make that kind of drive the company. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but what was it that got you so hooked on the fact that I got to have a great culture here?
I think having the opportunity to shape and form it, and to go back to the beginning, I'm not the founder of Net Health. I consider myself a refounder, which is something we'll probably talk about in a little bit.
Absolutely.
But having the stewardship for something at a pretty young age, I was mid-20s when that happened. It was a big responsibility, and I think the first question Chris and I asked was, how do we create a place that we actually want to come to work as well?
Nice.
Part of it, but then there was a shift, just like how in the beginning I wanted to run a successful company, and then I met the patient, and then everything changed. I realized that one of the highest goods that employers can do is to create flourishing for the people that do the work every day.
Right.
And that's a very unpopular commentary to some people. There are certain economists that would say the highest good for a business is profit for the shareholders. I'd say that's been pretty widely debunked these days. Just a year ago, about 200 of the largest companies in the world signed on to an effort that recommended that we look at multiple stakeholders and not just shareholders. And I say that because shareholders are critically important. Unless you can do a good job by shareholders, I don't think you can do a good job with the rest. But the key for me was recognizing that if you can create flourishing in the people that are doing the work each day, and flourishing means, are we growing personally, professionally, and in our communities? Is this a part in their journey? If you can do that well, I think that you're going to succeed. So I'd say it was making, small bets along the way for ways that we can make a physical and work environment that made sense, ways that we can create authenticity and trust by the way that we speak and communicate through our programs, and how can we actually be known and not just show up for work and leave and lead these dual lives.
Yeah. Was there ever a point in time where there was any kind of a clash where it's like, you said before, obviously you got to make your profit. I mean, that's something that has to happen, but that isn't necessarily always the key driver. Was there ever a point where there was a clash where you're bringing up ideas to do things and other people are saying, but hey, we got to be focusing on something else instead. I'm sure there had been some friction points along the way in order to bring in this unique kind of culture that you've been able to grow at Net Health.
Always friction, all the time, every year, every month. I think friction is, if you're not dealing with some friction, you're probably not doing important stuff. So I'd say, in the earliest years when we started this thing called Connect, where we brought everybody in the company to Pittsburgh, and we take over a venue like the August Wilson Theater in downtown Pittsburgh, and we would do our version of TED Talks. We call them NED Talks, like Net Health Ed.
Nice.
We were even at the smallest, when it was a $20,000 endeavor. You look at your revenue, you think, is this really a good use of the money? And for us, the answer had always been, think of it this way: how can you bring everybody together, drive authenticity and connectedness, eat, drink, celebrate, learn, have kind of a visceral experience together? How do you do that? And the answer for us always had to do with getting together. Now that's changed over the years, and in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a massive live virtual Connect. We don't want people traveling right now; it's unsafe, and so we're going to put together a 1.5-day event.
Nice.
Part of it has to do with driving authenticity and vulnerability through being candid about where we really are, but being open and honest about the kind of people we are and the kind of the community that we want to be together.
Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. So tell me a little bit, so what's Net Health really driving for right now? What, is there some, you're a big old company with a heck of a lot of heart. What else are you guys thinking about this day and age when it comes to giving back and creating culture? Anything new that you guys are spinning up?
Yeah, so there's a couple of advocacy things we've gotten pretty interested in. First, I would say we rebranded. We had the opportunity to do that less than 6 months ago. And when we were sitting around the table with Josh and Erica and Ben and some other folks, we were driving home this question of who really are we? Let's own that and be a part of that. And so part of that was determining that what we're really here to do is reunite caregivers with their calling. And so let's just take a minute on that one, Jonathan, because what reuniting implies is that something has been broken. And absolutely something has been broken. And in healthcare, the fact that doctors, nurses, caregivers have been separated, in many cases by screens, but in many cases by fundamental problems in healthcare, we wanted to be part of the group that's reuniting them with what they started out doing. So caregivers are really who we focus on. We don't necessarily have a direct connection with the patient. We're not the one actually healing them. It's the caregivers that are doing this great and noble work. And I say great and noble because the end of the statement is with their calling. And so we deliberately used, intense and heavy language to say that most of the people in healthcare we've met believe it's their calling to help heal.
Yeah, it's their passion. It's their jam. I mean, it's what they're all about, for sure.
It's what they're all about. So, I'd say we build around that premise that we're here to reunite caregivers with their calling. And so then we kind of work backwards and say, well, how do we do that? A recent example, we did an acquisition in April of a lovely company called Tissue Analytics in Maryland. And I had been, and Chris had been, and Jason had been in connection with them for years and watched them grow. But what they're doing in artificial intelligence and machine learning is a great example of, I think, reuniting caregivers with their calling. If we can actually provide predictive analytics to our caregivers, we can save them time to spend more time.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. Interesting.
So, focused on projects like that and a whole bunch of others, partially related to the opioid epidemic and the chronic wound healing epidemic, which is affecting Black people 3 times more than white people.
Right. Wow. Crazy stuff. This is why I just think this is such a cool story. And what Net Health, you guys are quietly kicking butt back there in the Strip District, drinking coffee. And to be able to get some of this word out, I think is just fantastic. Actually, rumor has it you are writing a book right now. And I'm pretty excited about this because it's appearing to be all about refounding of companies, which is kind of a term I've never heard about before. You got to fill me in on this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the word came from a conversation I had with one of our board directors as we finished up a deal with the Carlyle Group one of our directors kept introducing me to people as the founder of the company. And I had to politely remind her that I wasn't the original founder. And so I consider myself a refounder. And so it's built on this idea that there are lots of people out there doing some amazing work in the existing institutions, neighborhoods, and things that are already built. And so I wanted to give a voice to these folks because I think that startups are important. Startups are a big deal. I'm an investor in startups. I'm an advisor of startups. But sometimes startups can't solve all of our problems. And so I think there's this amazing opportunity within the built environment and existing institutions to create huge change.
It sounds like, I mean, it's a topic I've never heard of before, and I think it's very important. I'm feeling like you're kind of turning over some fresh ground in this work. Have you found anything else out there that's, I don't want to say competitive to this, but that's kind of nerding out on this same type of content as you?
Yeah, thank you. Not so far. So basically, this kind of was born out of my experience in Net Health, and then we started looking for lessons in other companies, and they're everywhere. And so in the book, through a series of interviews and some research that the team did, we found that there are these refounders all over the place. And so in the book, I'm going to tell stories of people who are making a difference in their neighborhood. And they didn't invent the neighborhood, but they live there. And there's a problem, and they want to do something about it. So we'll tell the story of refounders that are doing it in the places they live. And then we'll tell the story of refounders that are changing in a great way, existing organizations and institutions as well. And really, Jonathan, it's all about people who are willing to look at the status quo and say, it ought to be better than that. And then basically the steps they're taking to make a positive difference.
Very cool. Are these all Pittsburgh-based stories? Or are you like canvassing the globe to get these stories?
Yeah, all over. For the most part, it's the United States, although one of our stories takes us to a different country. But it's people all over the United States that are doing interesting things and kind of breaking down. If you have a problem and you're taking a sober look at something, how do you get clear on what the problem is, defining it well, and getting to something we call problem zero? And then how do you reimagine new possibilities? And then based on that, how do you take action and not stay stuck in the post-mortem, but actually focus forward on the solutions?
Oh, this sounds like a fascinating read. So when is this going to drop? When can I get a copy? What's up?
Yeah, so the publisher is telling me February 1st is the date.
Okay.
But we've got, it may come out a tiny bit earlier than that. You may get an early copy.
I want an advanced copy, but you got to sign it, Patrick Colletti, refounder, right? Of Net.
Yeah, I'll give you some coffee with it. How about that? That's even better.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, so people can find out more if they're interested. We've got just basically a page up at refounder.com, and you can sign up for more information if you're interested. We're going to be sending out updates, talking about some of the events we're going to be hosting and where you can hear some of these stories soon.
Oh, this is so cool. And how neat, dude. You are now an author as well, too, as a refounder, as well as a business guy, as well as an entrepreneur, as well as an advisor, as well as an investor. Come on, man. You're making me look lazy over here. I don't like this. Patrick,
you're telling important stories good, Jonathan. So
I'm trying my best, and I can't believe that I've gone through 50 of these now, and I'm so happy, Patrick, you got to be our 50th story. I just think it's an amazing one, and it's one of those in Pittsburgh. I always say, only in Pittsburgh, Patrick, and you and your team are making Pittsburgh proud. That is for damn sure.
Thanks. Well, let me hit you right back with that and say you're a legend, and the storytelling you do and the platform you give to other people is really powerful. So thank you, and thanks to the Tech Council too.
Well, that's some humbling words, and that's probably one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me, and I really appreciate that, Patrick. Like I said, it's been just a joy and an honor knowing you for the past 20 years. I'm looking forward to another 20, watching what else you do and being able to tell some stories around that. So good stuff, man. And once again, thanks for being part of our Comcast Summer of Pittsburgh Tech Stories.
Cheers.